you have to stay calm through the moments when you need to solve problems, because it's the only way you're going to find a solution.
The only thing we could guarantee was that there would be some sort of conflict. That was the only thing we could guarantee with every production, with every, it was the only thing we could guarantee. So then when you start to realize that that's for sure going to happen, you can relax a little bit because you're not surprised by it. And we can actually grow from that.
Welcome back to the Ground Up Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. This podcast is a good one. It's really good. That was Colin and Samir. Colin and Samir are YouTubers / entrepreneurs / online creators, incredibly creative individuals that are producing really high value content, really thoughtful content. I first found out about them about 3 months ago when one of you guys, one of the listeners to the show said, hey, you got to check these guys out. You should have them on the podcast. They happen to be in LA. So we linked up. It turns out that they had seen some of the content I made as well. So it was really cool to just catch up and to have this mutual conversation about content creation, what it takes to create at a high level, what it takes to create consistent content. We talk about dealing with pressure, how to stay calm when you're dealing with these spontaneous mistakes and errors that pop up while we produce videos. We also talk about bootstrapping things early on to maintain ownership. So why it's really important to not take outside funding, or why you should be very thoughtful about the partnerships that you enter into. And we also talk about the difference between being productive and being busy. It's a long podcast. This one is over 2 hours long. This is the first 2+ hour podcast. Before we get to the show, if you guys want to support the show, support the podcast to keep things going, you can do a couple things to help. Primarily, head over to iTunes and leave a quick review. That helps to promote the visibility of the show. It makes sure that more people can see it. It ranks higher on the iTunes chart. So all those reviews have been helpful. Thank you to everybody who's done it so far. And the other one would be just to share your favorite episode with a family or friend or a stranger. I don't know. I don't know why I kept going there. But yeah, share it with a stranger. Just message random people online. Don't spam people. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. But yeah, so anyway, let's just get to the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy this one. This is Colin and Samir. You're listening to The Ground Up Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name's Matt Diavella, and I'm a filmmaker best known for the Netflix documentary Minimalism. And I'm sitting down with creators to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. How you guys feeling? Feeling good?
Feel good.
Feel alive?
Caffeinated.
Caffeinated. You guys just this is the first time anybody's chugged a cup of coffee before.
Really excited.
I took it down like a shot.
That's like when you you bring a friend out that doesn't drink a lot of, like, say, whiskey.
Sure.
And you're like, all right, this is a $200 bottle of whiskey, and then they just take a shot. And you're like, what?
Yeah, we did not savor these at all.
Yeah. So how was the coffee? Was it up to you guys have high standards?
Very high standards. Yeah.
They get higher and higher the more we go on. Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about in the car, if the coffee was bad, we were just going to walk out. So
that's it. This was all riding on the coffee.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
I think I actually have thought about that. Like, what happens if a guest walks out? Because I've had at least one podcast where the conversation went, I don't want to say off the rails, but let's just say we weren't seeing eye to eye on a lot of things.
Okay.
And it got kind of tense. Like, I think I was being very polite throughout the conversation, and then 40 minutes in I was like, you know what, like, I think I'm just going to tell him that I just completely disagree, or start to push back and be devil's advocate. And then it really stopped the podcast pretty quickly. Like, each answer started to be like one word answers from him, and I'm like, so I was like wondering, I was like, well, what if that happens, like, if that happens within 10 minutes of a conversation and then they just storm out, maybe I should just like continue the podcast without them. And just
but it also would make for a good video too. So.
Oh my god, wouldn't that be great?
Fascinating.
Yeah, that would actually be good. And then it would just be like 45 minutes of me just sitting there.
I was actually thinking about that today, because I was thinking, like, we both feel like we know each other because we watch each other's videos, but like we don't actually know each other. So coming into like a podcast like this, it's kind of an interesting concept that we just don't know each other, but we're gonna create together today and like have this conversation that we're betting on.
Right. Well, I feel like you can get a pretty good feel and a vibe from somebody, especially I think in the kind of format of content that we create. Well, first of all, a video, like, it's so personal. And then like the vlogging style is just very like kind of intimate and raw, and like you show a lot of moments that aren't necessarily polished.
Right.
And the same thing with like a long form podcast where you can't fake it for an hour every week. Eventually you're gonna have to default to yourself, or it's just gonna be really forced and uncomfortable. You guys do a lot of like, well, you know what? This always happens. The conversation just starts running.
Right.
And I will have given you guys a proper intro before the podcast, but why don't you guys give me your own brief introductions?
Cool. My name is Samir. I am born and raised here in Los Angeles. Been creating content with Colin for about 6 years now. Started a company in 2012 called the Lacrosse Network, which was a online sports media destination for the sport of lacrosse. Met Colin through that project. We had some success with that, built that over a couple years. And now we're based in downtown LA and we make videos together every day.
Yeah, I feel like Samir covered a good part of my story there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not born and raised in California. I'm born in New Jersey. And I went to school in Colorado, picked up a camera after college, started filming and editing, teaching myself. And it was during that time that Samir saw one of my videos, reached out to me, and I ended up working with him.
I think it would be fun to, we'll tell your story and kind of go more into detail about how you guys started to build this thing. But I want to talk a little bit about like YouTube. And because you guys have been creating on YouTube for a while, we all grew up when YouTube was just being created, probably like, I don't even know, like around high school time.
Yeah.
So how do you see YouTube today? Like, how has it evolved and where do you think it's going?
Man, I mean, where YouTube was when we first started creating content, just to tell a brief story. So I went to school in Northern California at UC Santa Cruz and I studied film there. And all I wanted to do was move back to LA, go into Hollywood, and be in the movie business. That's all I wanted to do. And there was a guy that I met in Northern California who worked at YouTube. And he was telling me all about what YouTube was doing and how it was like more premium content, and telling me that I should take videos to YouTube. And the only thing I could think about was like, man, YouTube is for cat videos. That is nothing to do with the type of filmmaking I want to make. And over time, my eyes got really opened through him showing me what was happening on YouTube and just realizing that people were using it as like an actual distribution platform. I ended up coming back here and working in Hollywood for a bit as an editor. And I was sitting in this room, in this dark room, and we were editing this movie. And every day I was like, man, when is this thing going to be done? When is this going to come out? And I asked the head editor and he was like, yeah, maybe like 18 months. And I was like, that is too long. That is crazy. And it made me think a lot more about YouTube and think, man, I feel like I could have an idea in the morning, shoot it in the afternoon, and put it out. And so it's kind of a long way of saying like that was my pathway to realizing that YouTube was a viable option for content, and that the way the world is evolving is so much more for speed and so much more for feedback, like putting something out, getting feedback and refining it. So I would say today what YouTube is this amazing platform where you can actually create, bring ideas to life, and bring an audience along through that process and evolve over time. One of the most amazing things I think to do is to find a YouTube channel and then press the button to go to the oldest video.
Yeah, I do
right?
that too.
Watch the first video. And like, that's not a thing that really existed before in content or in filmmaking. Was, you don't go see a Scorsese movie and then be able to say, wait, what was his first movie? Right. And so you get to be a part of the process, the creation process. So I think, where it's going is probably a little bit deeper in that direction of, being able to be a part of the content creation process, be a part of your favorite brands, connect with people on a much deeper level and break down a wall that used to exist.
I think that's such like an intrinsic part of social media in general, and what makes it different than Hollywood is that you do get to change over time as an artist, but also as a consumer of that content, you're there, like Samir said, to see the artist evolve. Like you always see people who are like, I was there from before 5K subs, and like this whole idea of like public reiteration, right, is just part of the platform. Like as an audience member, as a fan, that the person you're watching is going to change, and you're there for that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable things, like you said, was that you can go back and look at people when they first started. And that was so encouraging for me before I started the podcast, because I was like, all right, well, let me look at like Joe Rogan, like when he first started out. And like, if you look at some of his early stuff, it's like super humbling. It's just him on like a live cast smoking weed and talking with his buddies. And like the first maybe 20, 30 episodes are like that, where it's not super cohesive and there's not much structure around it. But then to be able to see somebody evolve over time, I think that's probably, if you're able to see the old Scorsese films or Spielberg or whatever, like if you saw their college films, you probably like, oh, this is pretty shit. Like there's potential there. There's there's a place where it could go. But I think it's super encouraging.
It just makes it so much more accessible and relatable, which I think is like it's what creates the connection, and it's what makes any story good, is through like the relatability of the character. Can I see myself in this? And I think when you open up that wall on YouTube and you create a lot and you bring people in the process, then you're creating that connection with the audience, and that's really special.
Yeah, and you said the one thing you were saying, like speed, so important. I think like the only other thing that's important is quality, and it's that the balance between those two of speed and quality. It's like, how quick can you put it out, and how good is it going to be? Because there's probably a time when you're putting out stuff too quick, when you're not thinking about it enough. But then there could be something, that other side of the dilemma where you're spending 3 months to put out a video.
Yeah, I think though the idea of quality for us changed over time. Like, growing on YouTube specifically, you understand that quality has everything to do with how valuable that content is to the audience, not necessarily like the production value or the quality of the camera. Like in the early days of our first YouTube channel, one of our highest viewership videos was shot with an iPhone. And I think that put a lot of things into perspective for us about what quality meant on YouTube.
Especially because we sunk money into cameras, right? And we had thought, when we were like mapping out, okay, well, how does YouTube work? This is in 2012. Okay, it's going to cost us X amount to make a video. So we're betting on the fact that AdSense will, bring in a couple $1,000 per video. And then you start to realize, we had a meeting with a guy actually at YouTube, and I was explaining this to him, and he was like, wait. It should cost you $0 to make a video. Like there should be no production budget here. Like just create with what you have, and it will build over time. And that was like really eye-opening for me. It was like, oh wow, yeah. Okay, throw like the budgets out the window right now. When we're building on YouTube, it's like, what do we have in front of us, and how can we create and tell a story that connects to an audience with what we have?
Do you think people are getting too caught up with the quality game? Because it's, if you look at any of our comment sections, a lot of it's like, what camera to use? How are you editing? Like a lot of stuff related to the visual. How did you color grade it, right?
I think it depends. If your audience finds that valuable, then it is important. And there's a lot of people on YouTube now who do find that valuable. And I think it's great. It's making the content better across the board, in my opinion, on YouTube. It's getting so premium.
I mean, look at your content, right? Like, I think your content is like, for me, it feels like the intersection between speed and quality, because you're getting out a lot of content in a week, but it's like, it's such a premium look and aesthetic. It's all really well branded, but more importantly is it's like, it's so bingeable because of the aesthetic, because it's like consistent across the board. And so I think like as creators are thinking about getting into this and being like, okay, I want to become a creator, the first step is to create with what you have. It's not reliant on the gear, right? It's not like, oh man, Matt uses A7, so I need to buy an A7. It's like, okay, first, can I tell a story that connects with people, and then can I build on that? And as you make it a more like viable thing, it's like, okay, I'm going to become a professional creator. Then you start investing in the gear and start investing in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, I mean, if you look at either of our channels, the first videos are actually pretty good. Like the quality of them are pretty high, but that's because people haven't seen the 5 to 10 years previously when we got our first cameras and we really started making, like, you didn't actually see the first video we ever made.
Yeah, I mean, the first video we ever made is on the Lacrosse Network. It still exists, and it's just with a MacBook. And Samir, I think, points to me to speak, and I just kind of like smile, give like a thumbs up. I'm just so awkward and confused as to like how to carry myself on camera, and it's amazing that like that still exists and is on the internet.
So we made a video called Life Through Our Lenses to kind of show the progress and the process of this whole creation, right? And like for me, my first camera was this VHS camera that was just laying around my house. It was like my parents' camera, and I used that. And then as time went on and we had more, cameras and whatnot, we were using different things. And we made this video to show that like truly our first video we ever made was shot on a MacBook. And we probably spent a year shooting content on a MacBook. We had other cameras, but it was just, that's the way we thought it made sense to talk to our audience, was put up a MacBook and just speak directly to that lens.
I think what's interesting about you guys is that, Samir, you went to school for filmmaking. Colin, you did not go to school for filmmaking. So let's take a step back and kind of how we got there, how you guys ended up meeting. Where do you guys want to start the story? Where should we begin?
So it all started here in Santa Monica, 1989.
Nah, that's too far back. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
No, that'd be cool, because then we could do like a little like voiceover music and then...
So yeah, I guess, we could start the story probably in film school. I went to high school here in LA, and one thing that Colin and I connect on a lot is like the industry, right? He's from New Jersey. So when I grew up in LA, all of my friends, all their parents were in the entertainment industry. I was surrounded by it. That's the thing that I just knew. That was like the thing I wanted to do. It's like, I'm from LA, I want to be in the entertainment industry.
Wildly different than New Jersey.
Wow, yeah, I know.
Wildly
So,
different,
we know that New Jersey come up.
Of course. Totally different.
What's the New Jersey equivalent? It's like...
I think where I'm from, it's like there a lot of people went into finance and worked in New York City.
Yeah, or pharmaceutical. I
Or
know a lot
pharmaceuticals,
a lot of big pharmaceutical companies
Yep.
in Jersey. Yeah.
So that's like a really big difference between us, which is interesting, and probably why I decided, I studied film in high school and I wanted to go to college and study film. That's like just from a young age, that was the industry. That's what I wanted to get into. So when I went to college, the common thing about us, even though we had different upbringings, was that we both grew up playing lacrosse. And so we had this like commonality in the sport we played and the community we were a part of. So I went to film school at UC Santa Cruz, and I also played lacrosse, and I was just like a part of this community and also making films and really interested in creativity. And I was coaching lacrosse as well in college. And something that was really interesting is I thought there was such a big difference between the sport that I played and that the community I was a part of and all other sports. And it was like, it was not very widely recognized. It was not, a big sport. Not a lot of people played. It was like just something that didn't really exist in the media or just, in sports. Like it just wasn't very recognized. So I thought, what's the biggest difference? As I was studying film, it was like, for me, it was the media. It was like, there's not much content around this sport, and that's not allowing the sport to grow. It's not allowing people like me who grew up in LA playing this sport to connect to a broader community. And I think if people could connect to the greater community at large of people who are playing the sport, then they would feel more connected and probably share the sport more, and the sport could grow. And, I just thought it was something that could happen in a way that I could use my, passion for filmmaking and the passion for the community and pair them together. So after college, came back here, worked in Hollywood. And then, as time went on and I was more...
God damn it, Colin.
All right.
Apologies.
Podcast's over, man.
It was bound to happen. It was bound to happen.
Yeah. I think it's the funniest just because you were trying not to let it happen.
I was trying so hard. I'm going to put this one over there.
It's all good.
So, long story short, there was a moment where it was like, all right, I think I could create something quicker and more meaningful and something that I'm really passionate about rather than, work on this movie here in the studio. So I decided to start something on YouTube called the Lacrosse Network. And I had a friend here in LA who I brought the idea to, and I was like, I think we should work on this. He did not play lacrosse, which was, I think, really crucial and beneficial for us. And we essentially put a 6-foot folding table down in my bedroom of my parents' house. And I was like, this is our office now. And we had laptops, and we went out and we bought one camera. We put all the money towards one camera, which was like a Sony XF105. And we had one camera, and we were like, all right, we are now a network. And essentially we started creating content, like whatever we could create here in LA. So it was like high school game. We were going to shoot highlights of high school games and all kinds of different like random things. Then we got into live streaming. And around that time is when we saw something online, which was a trailer for a web series called Club Ball. And it was about the Colorado lacrosse team, which was a club team. And the trailer was like this incredible storytelling with this guy, like doing his voiceover and like bringing us through this personal journey of like this team. And it felt like an MTV show. It was branded really well. The music was good. And that show was made by Colin. That was the trailer that we saw was made by
That
Colin.
guy was me.
Did you like that suspense?
Yeah, that was really good.
It was good suspense,
Yeah, I was
right?
like, where's this guy? Wow.
Yeah.
Brought it all together.
There we go.
Enter Colin.
Enter me. Yeah. Okay. So I'm at University of Colorado. I play lacrosse there. I'm an economics and Italian major. And after I graduate, I think the best thing I did was give myself the time and the space to figure out what I didn't want to do. So I wasn't that interested in economics. Italian I loved, but I wasn't going back to Italy anytime soon. Probably wasn't proficient enough to speak as like a teacher or something like that. So I got a job after I graduated in Boulder at a hotel, 40 hours a week, just at the front desk, greeting people, checking them in. And it was during this time that I understood that no matter what I did, I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I also knew that I would need to acquire some skills to do a lot of the things myself. So that meant like putting up the website, taking the photography or doing video and things of that sort. So the first two purchases I made after I graduated were a Canon 60D off Craigslist and a cracked version of the Adobe Creative Suite. And so I just wanted to learn how to make videos and how to do Photoshop and be creative. And the first story that I knew I had the most access to was the Colorado lacrosse team, because I had played there. I knew I had a lot of trust in the coach, and I knew he was a really good character. So after work, I just started filming and editing and following the Colorado lacrosse team. And I was really inspired at the time by what was happening in like action sports, which was scheduled, serialized, like really well-branded web series. And I think primarily they were all on Vimeo at the time, but they were super personality-based. And a lot of times it was like one person telling their story. And I took a lot of inspiration from that and decided to start this web series called Club Ball, which in the trailer, I introduce myself and tell you why I'm the right person to be telling you this story, and sort of set up the context and say like, now get ready to follow along week by week. And after I put out the trailer, I got an email, I think the next day, from Samir.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So because you just happened to be watching the same kind of videos online, just looking up lacrosse videos, and then...
Yeah, I mean, for me, like when you're launching something, anything, my strategy was like, all right, I know this audience because I am this audience. So where does this audience hang out online? And wherever the audience was hanging out at that stage, the early stages of starting this company, I was living and breathing in those communities in those areas. So online blogs, different creators that I was finding. And again, this is before Instagram, before video was really uploaded to Facebook.
Yeah, what year was this?
This was 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, 2012. So I think I found it through a blog. And these were like really small blogs, probably blogs with a couple hundred readers, but those were the super fans, right? And anyone who was creating content for those blogs, they were super fans. So building relationships with those blogs and just living in those like online communities was so important to really understand what the appetite was for this audience, what kind of content was valuable to them. And then for us, like when I saw that piece of content that was shared by all the blogs, it was like, okay, this is a really valuable piece of content. I can understand it too because I'm an audience member, and it's really unique and different. I need to carry it on my network.
And I considered myself a writer before I was an editor or like a creator in the video space. So I actually wrote for a lot of these blogs. And when I was getting ready to release this series, I reached out to all of them and made sure that they would be willing to distribute the first episode. So I knew that when this came out, there would be some viewership, at least within the community.
Right. Do you guys happen to know John Christmas?
Yeah,
lacrosse player?
very well.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I made a video with, I don't know if you saw it because it's around the same exact time, 2012. I made a video with his Encore brand.
It's probably distributed on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
network.
probably on the Lacrosse
Yeah,
network.
I was going to say, I think that because like I remember I used to never get any traffic to my website or Vimeo page at that time, but there was some lacrosse company that was pushing a bunch of traffic my way, and I'm pretty sure that you guys shared it.
So we worked with John. So we became basically a distributor. We were creating original content, but we also worked with everyone in the community to distribute it. We had a close-knit relationship with YouTube through a personal relationship that I had, who was really feeding us like best practices and really helping us along in this process of audience development. And so for us, like we were creating original content. Colin's show became one of the biggest shows on our network, and at a time where we were doing 2 to 5,000 views a video, that show was doing 20 to 50,000.
Wow.
And it was like really eye-opening that, we were doing professional live lacrosse games on our network too. We were doing highlights, we were doing all kinds of things, but it was like, wait, this documentary series about a club lacrosse team in Colorado is the thing that's performing the most. Why? It was character driven and it was incredibly relatable. It was just about a group of guys who loved playing the sport. And so it was like, okay, what type of content are we going to create moving forward? It's going to be more stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where, we were talking about early on where you keep making content. This might have been even before the podcast, but you're making content and then nobody's watching it, nobody's listening to it. And like, you have to, I think a lot of it comes down to your gut. You're like, well, in my gut, like, am I creating something that's worth watching? Or can I switch up? Can I figure out a better way to tell this story? And then in this kind of way, you're able to actually just see that this particular kind of video was really connecting with people.
And granted, it was over time, right? Like it wasn't immediate, but it was over time that show. We ended up doing another season with Colin and like really hyping it as our like premiere show. But I think to what you were just saying, like the important thing was that we were creating a lot. And at that time we were at a really early stage where we had a community that was really safe. Like as long as we were creating good content that was under the umbrella of like, this is lacrosse and we like this sport and you guys like this sport and we're going to tell stories within it, the community was really supportive. And the thing was, it allowed us, like if you go back and watch those early videos, they're really cringy, right? For us to watch now, they're like crazy cringy. And we're like, what is this? But it's just like playing sports. Like if you want to play in the NFL, you're going to practice a lot as a kid. And when you're a kid, you're not ready to play in the NFL. But over time, over the next 10, 20 years, you become faster, bigger, stronger, and prepared to actually go into, a more premier situation, a more like, intense situation. So 5 years of creating content together made us prepared for the opportunities that we were going to get.
You could argue that our most cringeworthy videos are our most valuable because had we not made those, we wouldn't have made any others.
Right. That's a good point. Even if they only got 10 views at the time, you had to make that video to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Colin, what made you? Did you go straight from college to working with the Lacrosse Network? Did you move to LA at that point?
So I spent 1 year in Boulder, Colorado, working at the hotel, filming, traveling with the lacrosse team. And then it was, I guess, 7 months later, Samir and I talked about me moving out to California for what was going to be like a 3-month internship. And originally I had friends in San Diego. I had no plans to ever move to Los Angeles. And so I tried to work out a deal with Samir where I would live in San Diego by the beach and just, from time to time, work on whatever was needed for the Lacrosse Network. And eventually we decided that was not going to work. That if I was going to do this, I had to be in Los Angeles.
And was there money in it at this time? Like, do you have sponsors and like how you?
Yeah, there was no sponsors. It's a very roundabout way that we were financing the network. My family's in the clothing business, and we essentially helped launch a clothing line that was financing what we were doing.
I saw that in one of the videos. Was it the Japan one?
No, it's
big in Japan or no?
Yes.
It's in that.
We referenced that.
Yeah.
So basically the concept was, okay, here's 3 guys that are good with creative. And, my dad, he's an incredibly creative guy and the type of guy who he sat me down and he was like, I don't want you to raise money. I don't want you to have anyone else's say in your creativity. So you need money. And what we're going to do is you're going to help me launch a clothing line. And we're going to put some of the profit from that clothing line into your business. And you guys are going to help with the branding. You're going to help with the graphic design. You're going to help with the Instagram, with the, as that came about. So we basically became a creative arm for this women's fashion line.
Wow.
At the same time making sports content.
Yeah,
for
try explaining to someone what you do at that time. Like,
it's not a very linear story.
Yeah. What do you do?
Okay, so half the day I work on women's fashion. I run the Instagram, and then in the second half of the day I'm making lacrosse videos.
Wow, but I mean, props to your dad for having that kind of like foresight to know that. It's more obvious today than ever that you need control over your content, and you have to be very cautious about letting other people have any kind of ownership over it.
Yeah, I think he, he's an entrepreneur as well, and I think he knows from experience that it takes a lot of time to evolve, and having pressure when you're trying to evolve is really challenging. Like pressure to monetize or pressure to get into situations that you might not, be ready for. And having the situation where you can just create freely and find yourself through creative is what's going to make the strongest brand and the strongest connection. And so I'm so appreciative of that opportunity. I mean, we worked really hard in those years because, we're making a video and then I'm packing boxes to, send a shipment to Urban Outfitters, and then I'm back to making videos. So we were doing all kinds of different things just to do it. And I don't think we ever really thought about it too much. It was just like whatever we need to do to keep creating videos, we're going to do.
It gave us the freedom to create and honestly to fail again and again and again and again. Like we had the luxury of having the time and the space to just fail for 2+ years until we figured out what worked.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of money. It's not like we were super, there wasn't a lot of money. But it was enough to create content.
I had the same exact experience through college and living at home. So I just started filmmaking. Oh man, I've told this story in the podcast before. I'm not going to get deep into it. I don't know if you guys heard, but I was sued my sophomore year of college for $7 million for making a parody rap video in a grocery store. A&P. A&P?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, A&P. I used to work at A&P in the produce department, and me and my brother made a video called Produce Paradise. And then it a customer, actually it was an employee, complained, and then it went all the way up to corporate, and then they ended up firing us, suing us. And then we were on national television. We had limos pick us up to speak on CNN and Fox News. And we were on those shows where there was 4 lawyers, and 2 lawyers would be talking saying how we're brilliant and we're being disparaged. And then the other 2 were like, these kids are idiots. They deserve to be sued. And then I'm I'm right here on the phone. This is really hurtful. So that was crazy. But I started filmmaking in that time when I was going to say the stakes are low, but I guess apparently the stakes were pretty damn high.
Sounds like the stakes were really high.
Sounds like they've never been higher.
we ended up getting out of the lawsuit. It took a year, but we ended up getting out of it. But that was when I just started making videos and actually seeing that I could make an impact making videos. But college, I think I started very early. It gave me that opportunity while I'm living off of student loans. I don't recommend that. It gave me the option to just focus on the videos, not have a part-time job, not be busting my ass and wasting my time working at a grocery store where I'm just making videos and I'm getting my first clients for $100. Even through all that, it wasn't enough. I ended up living with my parents 2 years after graduating college, which I think is an amazing piece of advice for anybody who's in debt. But sometimes you just need that time where so many people get forced and rushed into the 9-to-5, the corporate world, or a job that they won't be satisfied with because they need to make money.
Yeah, and I think also if you really think about it and you're like, man, my goal is to create videos. All I want to do is make videos. Then everything else around it, you just do whatever it takes, right? So I lived with my parents for 4 years after college because I was like, this is what it takes for me to make videos. I don't have resources to do anything else, but I didn't even think about it. I was just like, this is a comfortable situation. I get to wake up, I get to make videos. That's what I want to do. And I wanted to build this brand, and that was it. I didn't even think about going out, with my friends, or that my friends were living in apartments with their other friends. It was just this is exactly what I want to do. And this is what it takes to do it.
There were 2-3 years where we didn't do anything else.
Nothing.
Nothing but make videos for the Lacrosse Network.
You didn't do, you went out, you went out to dinner and stuff. You didn't do,
I'm not sure if I went to dinner.
On his birthday.
Wow.
I'll never forget this. On Colin's birthday, we were working on a show, probably the most aggressive piece of content we had ever made, which was we went behind the scenes with Team USA Lacrosse. We had this huge opportunity to, tell a story about something that everyone wanted to hear a story about, the U.S. men's national team, and essentially do a Hard Knocks 24/7 style documentary series, right? And Colin went on the road. He shot with another camera op for a week?
Yeah.
A week or so. He came back, and I'm always really aggressive with distribution and with what we can do. So I said, we'll release 4 episodes in 4 days.
Within a week of coming back.
Within a week of coming back. So we had to cut 4 episodes in 7 days.
How long are these pieces?
They were 10 minutes each.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we basically, like, in the middle of this editing time was Colin's birthday. And,
Oh boy.
And, you know, I don't know that we had celebrated a birthday in a couple of years.
Like, nor had I like made many friends in LA at that time. It's just a weird time.
But we were working. I mean, we were working. We would meet as early as possible and stay as late as possible. We got these edit bays in YouTube space, which is here in LA in Playa Vista. And so we were editing like the whole time. And basically, like, one day we were just like, you know what? We should go out to dinner for your birthday, I think, right?
Yeah, and I was like, that's probably a smart thing to do for like mental health. I should have like some sort of like birthday excitement.
Yeah,
you know?
some kind of celebration along the way.
Essentially, we gathered like a random group of people,
a crew of like whoever we could, to like a Mediterranean spot
like,
right next to YouTube space.
Right next to the edit base.
my
And we were
God.
like, meet us there.
Yeah.
And we met there, and then we went straight from dinner back to editing.
Wow.
And it was just like, we did it because we felt like it was something we needed to do, like just to like be a part of society again. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, I think even at that time, all I wanted to do was be in the edit bay.
Yeah, it was so fun. Like,
Yeah.
it was a time when like not that many people were watching, but it felt like everyone was watching. Like everything was riding on like what we were about to put out in the next 3-4 days.
Right.
And-
Super exciting.
And in like a niche community like Lacrosse, there was nothing else to look forward to. Like that was the only story. If you came up with a good story and you announced it was coming out on a certain day, like you were the marquee item for everyone to watch. So it did feel like everyone was about to tune in.
Wow. Yeah, for a small community like Lacrosse, where there's not much out there for people,
Right.
you know, you feel like there's a purpose there, right? You're like driven to make it for this audience.
Yeah. Especially being a member of the audience too. It's like, you want to make it as good as possible.
That, and I think that like a lot of times, you know, anybody, even people who talk about like productivity and healthy habits and creating a life that's balanced, there's always going to be times when you're working towards a deadline, you're writing a book or making a documentary where you got to put in some extra hours. Like you're working 10, 12-hour days because you have to set a deadline. And the closer you get to that deadline, the more and more you're like, oh shit, I need to, you know, especially if you care about your craft. And like, there's obviously a balance between being a perfectionist and not. But I feel like if you really care about what you're putting out there, you're going to, you know, just juice everything you can out of those final moments you can work on a project.
Yeah.
Do you guys still hustle like crazy today? Or has it like slowed down a bit since those early days?
It's definitely slowed down a bit, but not that much. Like, definitely not that much.
I think the main difference now is we try and take more time for like eating healthy, working out, and just doing certain things.
I think I better understand the difference between being productive and being busy. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was younger, the feeling of being busy felt really good. That if I was always doing something, then like I felt like I was progressing. Not realizing that I wasn't always being productive, and that sometimes overworking myself was not the most productive thing I could do, because then I wasn't prepared for when opportunity would hit. And so realizing now that, okay, now I've been through some of this grind, I've been through a lot of this, you know, for me, it's important to work out in the morning. And before I used to think, oh man, like working out, I could be editing, I could be doing something else. But realizing that now, okay, if I work out in the morning, I'm going to be a better editor. I'm going to be better in my meetings. I'm going to be better, you know, working on an idea than I would be otherwise. So spending the time, even like, you know, when I lived on the West Side, we would go surfing in the morning, and like that's being productive as well, because it's setting you up to be better at your craft later in the day and just later in life. So like recognizing the difference between being productive and being busy, I think is really important. And when you're in like a team structure or a corporate environment, the illusion of busy is what everyone's striving for, I think. So like, you know, getting away from that, and when you make your own schedule, it's like you start to realize, okay, how do I use this time? Do I need to be doing something in every minute, every hour, or, you know, can I do things that set me up for success that are really unconventional in like a traditional work environment?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to use busy as a crutch to not do things for yourself and sort of like take care of yourself. Like I think in the first 2 to 3 years that, you know, after moving to Los Angeles, I definitely leaned on being busy as to why like I didn't work out or I didn't go and try and create like better social situations for myself. So I think you kind of have to like understand that work-life balance and sort of take a step back and understand like, how can I be more efficient with my work, be very direct with it, and still be able to take care of myself, because that's very important to my work and just to your mental health.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah, sometimes I use the excuse I'm busy, but just to get out of things. Like, I don't want to do that. Sorry, I'm busy. But I never really feel busy. I never really feel like, sometimes I can feel overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I got way too much travel planned this month. Like, and especially now where we're in this route of like, we need to make content every week. We need to keep the YouTube channel going, right? Like, I don't want to go a week without releasing a video. It can get a little bit overwhelming, but I feel like, if you're busy, then you likely aren't prioritizing certain things in your life. You should never be too busy to go to the gym or eat healthy.
Totally.
I feel like, how do you guys make sure that do you plan out your meals? Do you plan out like your workout routine before the week starts? Like, how do you, because, especially when we're in the edit and we're working on videos, you can get so consumed with it that you'll like look up and realize that you've only had a peanut butter sandwich and coffee the entire day.
I think Samir's probably much better at it than I am. I sort of like run myself dry and then realize like, oh, I need to wake up and run tomorrow, or else like I just need to expel that energy. So I think I kind of like empty the tank until I realize I need to be eating healthier. Right. I need to be working out more. Whereas I think, Samir, you're a lot more scheduled with it.
Yeah, I'm really into schedules. Like, I'm really into agendas. I'm really into writing things down. And something I've learned recently, which is funny because I heard it on your podcast, maybe 2 episodes ago. I think it was Break the Twitch, but it was about you overestimate what you can do in one day and you underestimate what you can do in 1 year. I think I don't know whose quote that is.
It's
Bill Gates.
I think it's actually Tony Robbins. At least that's what I've heard it been attributed to. And for listeners, this probably happened 8 episodes ago. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a backlog.
Got it. So basically, like, not overestimating what you can do in one day. And so Colin and I mean, yesterday even, we sat and we take a look at the week and we say, okay, here are the big goals of the week. Here's the things we want to get done. And then, okay, what does the week look like? And where do those fit in? And what's the realistic amount of time that those things take? Because I think what I learned over the past couple of years is that we totally underestimate the amount of time it takes to edit a video or to come up with an idea. And respecting the amount of time it takes for you to get into a creative flow is really important. And, just really recognizing, man, I'm going to edit this video, I'm going to require myself to go get a coffee and sit and just experience life for a little bit before I edit for 10 hours. And really recognizing what I try and do now is I put a week's schedule out and I put amounts of time that these goals will take. What's a realistic amount of hours that I need to allocate to actually do this really well? Because I think we've experienced a lot of times where we're like, I think we can make 3 videos tomorrow. And then we try and do it and they're all like kind of mediocre. And then we're not, really happy with them. And we haven't really respected the process and the amount of time it takes. And so that boils down to everything in life where, okay, I want to work out. This workout class is an hour, but it's going to take me half an hour to get there. It's going to take me 10 minutes to, get myself ready to get back in the car to move over. So like really being strategic and understanding the amount of time that everything takes and allowing yourself to not rush through things is so important. And that I think makes you feel a lot more and allows you to be much more productive than just busy and rushed and stressed and confused.
Is this a process that both you guys use then in terms of like how you structure your days? Colin, it seems like you're a little bit more free spirit. Where you're like,
I'm much more loose with it. Like,
because like that's crazy. Like just the planning out of like, okay, this video is going to take 4 hours to edit and like all that. Sure. Like I certainly don't do that. How does your process work?
It's totally different for me. I mean, we're also just on totally different schedules. Like Samir's really a morning person and I am not. Like I feel like I shouldn't even be allowed to drive a car in the morning. Like
right.
I'm just like not in a good state. I can't do it. And I find that I'm most creative. I do my best work between the hours of 11 p.m. and like 2 in the morning.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't do that every night. I try and get like a good sleep if I can, but I think sometimes my best work or when I'm most productive is like through the middle of the night. So that's like not sustainable on a weekly basis. But for me, it just shows that I honestly, like I'm all over the place with like when I can be my most creative and get the most work done.
Is that something that you're okay with? Because for me, like that would bum me out if like I could only, I mean, it's hard because like I'm in a relationship. So like, I don't think Natalie would allow it. Like if I just came home like every night and just woke her up at like 3 a.m. Is that something that you are okay with, like working that late into the night?
I think when I'm up, I'm like, I shouldn't be up, even though like I feel good about the work I'm creating. I do try and like focus and get most of it done during the day. Yeah. So that I can schedule. But I know that about myself, that like sometimes I can't sleep and it's 12:30 and I'm like writing in my iPhone notes and I just have to keep going and I can't fall asleep because I'm just like in a flow at like 1 a.m.
Yeah. Do you meditate at all?
I don't.
Yeah, that might help. I know that, I mean, and I don't, I'm giving advice that I don't take.
No, I'm glad. I gladly, like, I
Yeah.
look to a lot of your stuff for advice. Like,
Yeah. I think, I mean, meditation is a practice. This is kind of like where you were saying, where sometimes you just run the tank until it's dry. And that's what I do when it comes to meditation. And certainly I think it would help to be a little bit more productive and just meditate every day and build a practice. But whenever I feel like I'm overwhelmed or I'm thinking too much and I can't get to bed because I have all these ideas just, going nonstop and I'm like, just shut up. That's when I always start to meditate a little bit more, which just helps to calm me down. There's an amazing, just in terms of sleep, a podcast that I just listened to with Joe Rogan. I think it's like 2 or 3. Did you listen to that one?
Someone just sent it to me.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's this like sleep scientist, and he really breaks down all the reasons why it's important and the things that you can do and the steps you can take to make sure you have good sleep. It's funny because my little sister she just asked me like, hey, I'm gonna come visit LA. Like my 3 younger sisters, they were gonna come visit LA, and they wanted to know if I could pick them up at the airport at 1 a.m. And I just listened to this podcast about sleep, and it was just bad timing for her because I was like, nah, I don't think I could do that. I don't because you can't interrupt your sleep. You're supposed to be going to bed and waking up at the same time. Super important.
Well, I think that brings up also when you become a freelancer, you don't have a structure that's like traditional, quote unquote. You have to learn how to say no, because all of a sudden these opportunities start coming up, whether it's like, hey, can you come film this? Here's a little project for you to do, or hey, let's get coffee. Hey, let's, and it's like, these aren't necessarily like bad things to do, or, but you have to evaluate now, okay, what are my goals and what do I say yes to? What progresses my goals, and what do I have to say no to? And how do I even say no to certain things? And that's something that I've had to learn over the past 2 years as we've, gone off on our own and become independent, is how to say no. It's not easy, especially when something feels like a really good opportunity and you have to evaluate, if you say yes or no to a good opportunity, if you're waiting for a great opportunity, if it doesn't progress, your whole goal forward. It's a really fascinating thing to learn.
It's interesting as a freelancer that like in the beginning, you're taking a lot of bets on opportunities that you hope will put you in a place to then make money off them, right? Like a lot of people as a freelancer do things at very low rates, or they do them for free because they hope that this will then put me in a good space or in front of people where I will then get hired and make money off of it. So it's interesting. You have to like really look at all these different options. And if you are at that place where you're doing things for free or for low rates, and really think, what's the best thing I could spend my time on right now?
Yeah, I think that's super important, is like you need to ask the questions about like, well, where do I want to take this from the very beginning? And that's going to change all the time. But like for me, it's only been a couple of times, but people may be asking me to do a speaking engagement or to be on somebody else's podcast or do something like that. And a lot of times the answer has to be no, especially with this, like any speaking or talking type engagements. It doesn't happen often, but I'm like, that's an easy no, because I'm like, I'm not working on that right now. Like I know I want to work on building my podcast and my YouTube audience. And that's pretty much like the 2 main pillars that I'm focused on. And since I have that focus, it's a lot easier to say no to certain things, or coffee meetup, anything small like that. Still hard. It's always challenging to say no to people. But dude, if you said yes to everybody, or if, you replied to every single comment and gave an in-depth response, you wouldn't have time to make the content that you want to make or need to do.
Yeah, that was a conversation we were having this morning about how much you need to create versus how much we consume. And that if you want to sign up for a life as a creator, you have to create way more than you consume. And you have to start taking your consumption, even scrolling Instagram, even checking Twitter, like you have to take that consumption down so much, and you have to create way more, spend all of your available hours creating.
What's your guys' current ratio? Like how much do you consume versus create at this point?
I consume a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to limit it. Yeah. I love consuming. Like I just love it.
Yeah, and I see a lot of value in consuming content. Like I love just observing the media landscape, understanding what people are doing. So I think what I could cut out is Instagram. I don't find that I get much return on scrolling Instagram, but certain YouTube channels, Netflix, I really enjoy.
I find that for me, it becomes a form of procrastination.
Totally.
Where when I listen to a podcast, especially a 2-3 hour podcast, I'm like, I find myself just sitting down, finishing the episode after, say I like go to the gym and I go, I do a little jog and I'm listening to that podcast. And if I've got 45 minutes left when I get home, I'll just sit down and finish it. When I'm like it's very easy for that to drip into the areas where I should be designating for creation.
Right. And that, I think, for me, again, I'm still learning and refining, it'll be an ever evolving process, but figuring out like, could I block out time for, dedicated time? Like, okay, from this time to this time in the evening, I'm going to watch whatever I want, whether that's Netflix or YouTube, but just even having a loose schedule in your mind that when I'm creating. I'm not going to take a break from editing to scroll Instagram or, scroll Twitter. I'm going to create. And if I need a break, I'm going to walk outside and do things that enhance my own personal creativity, whether that's writing or listening to music or,
If you haven't checked it out, check out Cal Newport's Deep Work. I've mentioned it on the podcast a lot. But that one got me to really think about prioritizing my time and how we structure our time and how the deep work, when we're like in that state of flow on a project, like that's when shit gets done.
Totally.
And yeah, so I've started to do that more. And I noticed, I actually just downloaded this app called Moment for my phone, and it just tracks how much you use your phone, how many pickups you have on your phone.
Oh my gosh.
And like,
Wow.
I haven't been very good with it. So like, there's been one day where I was really like, I needed to get this video done because like, I was running behind and I had the expectation I was going to release a video that week. So I was like, all right, absolutely no phone. I ended up only using my phone 11 minutes during the day, which is crazy low. Like the average that I have had over the past 2 weeks has been like an hour and a half, which I don't know. Does that sound like a lot, or is that
it feels like a lot, but I'm scared to know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to know.
Yeah.
the average on Moment, the average Moment user who has the phone, it's 4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And like my pickups was like 45 pickups a day. Like I'm like,
Wow.
but I mean, sometimes I'm like, shit, like I probably check email 8 times an hour, you know what I mean? Just popping in and being like, oh, did somebody give me something to do? Because I'm just, distracting myself.
Yeah.
But I have found when I do that, when I bring that practice in, like I'm a total hypocrite, but like once I do bring it in, it's like I'm so much more productive. And also I feel more clear. I feel like my thoughts aren't like scattered in a bunch of different directions.
I think a really good tactic is to draft a to-do list first thing in the morning. Even if you already know what you're going to do, draft a to-do list before you check your email. So, a lot of people, especially for me, when I was younger, first thing I would do in the morning is check my email. And then my email would define my to-do list. But if you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, these are the goals I have for today, this is what I'm going to do today. And then, part of that to-do list is check email, and you allocate some time to checking your email and responding, then it doesn't control your whole day. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy for like you said, to give me something to do, create my to-do list for me. And you let your email inbox do that for you. And that's like, for me, it's like so challenging to create within that structure.
Right. And I think I would actually amend that too and say, if it works better for you, do it the night before. Yeah. I found that for me, like if I'm set the day before, then it also makes it easier for me to wake up early. You know what I mean? Because like if you're setting, you're like, all right, I want to wake up at 5 or I want to wake up at 6 tomorrow. If I'm not waking up with something to do, I'm sleeping in.
Totally. For me, like the night before totally dictates what I'm going to do. Like if my workout clothes are like set out, I will work out. But if not, I won't do anything.
Yeah. Dude, what is wrong with humans?
I don't know.
Like we know what we want. Like in our waking hours, we know like, oh, okay, I want to eat healthy. I want to go to the gym tomorrow. And like, I remember that, especially when I was younger, being like especially at night, feeling inspired. Like the next day, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to do so much. And then you wake up and then you're like, it's a different person.
Yeah.
Different person. Yeah.
That's true.
It's so frustrating.
I actually wanted to go back to when we were talking about how different our just mentalities, our structure of our days are. It's such an important thing when you're a part of a team to be able to empathize with the other members of your team. And Colin and I are in like a creative partnership. So we are, we're in this together, and we have totally different styles of work. And it makes me realize that when you're in a company or a team environment, when you're making a movie with a bunch of people, getting to know the other person and how they work at their best is so important. And then understanding how you work together and how those things collaborate, because I can't expect that Colin's going to operate the exact same way as me, and he can't expect that I'm going to operate the same way as him. I can't expect that at 6:30 or 7 a.m. I'm going to call him and be like, all right, man, like, let's do this. Like, let's start working on this. Cause I know he requires a different process to get into a creative flow. And same for me.
It's not to say, well, I wouldn't
yeah,
do
I know,
it.
but I'm saying like,
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, I'm not like, no.
And he's not calling me at 11:30 and brainstorming ideas with me at night, even though he might
drive you crazy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like we just have different processes, and that's a really important thing when you're in, like, people are creative in different ways. I think when we were part of a company, putting a bunch of creatives in a conference room at 11 a.m. all together at the same time and say, come up with an idea, it can work, but a lot of people require different things to be their most creative and to do their best work. And it's really important to understand that, empathize with it, and truly like respect everyone else's process.
I think that the communication is the biggest thing there. And like, that's what I've noticed in relationships, whether it's personal, intimate, friends, family, or work. When there's a breakdown in communication, when you're not very clear about, roles, or say like, if I don't clearly articulate a deadline for a video, then that's going to really hurt that relationship with that client. And I've had that happen before. Like, and I luckily haven't had that many experiences with my freelance clients, because like I learned very early on that, oh shit, like I was under the expectation that if I edit this in 3 days, they would be blown away. When in reality, their expectation was that this video was going to be edited the next day. And I'm like, well, we can blame them. We can say, well, that's crazy. Why would you ever expect that? But you have to take responsibility, and you have to be like, all right, let's talk about this. Let's figure out how this relationship is going to work.
Right.
And if you don't do that, that's when shit goes wrong. When you guys look back at, the Lacrosse days and the Lacrosse Network, is there advice that you would give yourselves at that point in time when you're just starting to build a little bit of momentum, you're just getting started out? Like, what mistakes did you make, and what advice would you give yourselves?
For me, actually, it was a lot about communication. There was a lot, like the biggest lessons I learned for the Lacrosse Network, of course, I learned a lot about content creation, connecting with an audience. I mean, on one side, I learned that communicating with an audience is super powerful, and developing a relationship is really powerful. But on the team side, as a group of guys striving towards a goal, I think I really shied away from communication and confrontation, and asking hard questions, and dropping things that weren't working, even if they were someone else's idea. Like that for me, I was really terrified of all that, and learning over time that being honest and communicative and working through things together, collaborating with other people, like how that all works, that's the takeaway that I have. And what I think I've learned so much of from that whole experience was just everyone has different ideas. Creativity is so different from anything else. We're not making a t-shirt and selling it. We're coming up with ideas that all come out of our own minds, and then we're working on them with everything we have from inside of us. And so like when things are working or aren't working, it's kind of hard to cut someone else's creativity or try and shift it or try and work together on that. So I think I just learned so much about how to work in a creative team, and I'm really passionate about, talking to other people about creative teams and about creative partnerships. And, even now that we're in a completely different kind of creative team now with just Colin and I, and how it's evolved, and we're still learning about how that all works. But I would say those are my biggest takeaways, was like communicate as much as possible, understand everyone else on the team, and make sure that they understand where you're coming from. And when you're crafting an idea together, it's such a delicate thing to do.
I think for me, the biggest learnings were just, number one, be patient, because creating content, especially for the internet, is going to take a really long time, and your body of work is going to be defined by what you do over 3, 4, 5 years. And, you build strong connections through that amount of time. And then the second thing I would say is just stay calm as you're problem solving. I think one of the things I learned specifically from Samir and then Julian, who's the other co-founder, we were doing a lot of live streams in the early days, and that's kind of a tense thing to be monitoring a live stream and doing the productions for those. And I would really had a tough time monitoring live streams or just working on a live production. But I really learned from Samir and Julian that you have to stay calm through the moments when you need to solve problems, because it's the only way you're going to find a solution. And I was very quick to like get anxious and look around and like not really know what to do. And I just learned that, and that really helped me out as I was going on production trips, a lot of times by myself, that, you know, things inevitably are going to go wrong on a production trip every single time.
Every shoot. But you just have to stay calm and understand that that's part of the process, or else you will never find a solution. So I learned that quick working with these guys, and that was a huge value add for me.
Totally. I think it's such a good point, that something we learned was that it was just the only thing we could guarantee was that there would be some sort of conflict. That was the only thing we could guarantee with every production, it was the only thing we could guarantee. So then when you start to realize that that's for sure going to happen, you can relax a little bit because you're not surprised by it. Mm-hmm. Even in a relationship, when you think like, okay, the only thing that's guaranteed between us, like even in our partnership, is that there's going to be times where we butt heads. Okay, so when it happens, we're not surprised. And we have some sort of plan and process, and we can relax into the resolution of that, and we can actually grow from that. And that's like a really interesting.
It was a really liberating feeling for me. And then you would see people on the road that you work with, and they're freaking out, and you're like, oh, you know, he or she doesn't really understand that this is part of the deal. Yeah. That like we're here to work through these issues, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Right. I remember doing client shoots, and then if something would go wrong, you're trying to hide it from the client because the client doesn't understand that. Like, of course. Yeah. Okay. There's a wireless interference with the microphone, and now we're like, shit, I did not plan for a backup mic. Right. What do we do? We're like 20 minutes into this interview. I like cut it, and you know what I mean? There's these things that happen with every shoot. And then certain things, the more you do it, like if you do that kind of shoot over and over and over again, you have redundancies. You're like, all right, I'm going to bring a backup boom mic for every shoot. That way, if this happens again, I'm safe. Same thing with relationships. Like if you find yourself butting heads on the same thing over and over again, you have to try to figure out a way to approach that better or avoid it entirely. One
other lesson to learn from the years with the Lacrosse Network: it's really hard to make money off YouTube AdSense.
Yeah, is it?
At least at that time in 2012, like, you know, I think it was a blessing that we went into it super naive. You know, I mean, we had heard all these stories about people making big businesses on YouTube. So when we were first crafting our business model, quote unquote, we were just like, you know, oh man, we're going to make these videos and we're just going to make millions of dollars off. YouTube just pays you when you make videos for YouTube. Yeah. And you start to really learn like the business of being a online creator. And I think that was a huge lesson over the years, and still learning it, but just like, what's the reality of what are you doing when you're becoming an online creator? How are you creating a business out of it?
That's so important.
That was like so important to learn, and struggled through a lot of it. And I lived at my parents' house. So I had my dad every night asking me like, how are you guys making money? How does this all work? And I had to really think about how it worked. We did all kinds of things. We sold hats, we sold t-shirts, we sold stickers to other companies.
It's extremely difficult to explain to people what we were doing.
It was so challenging all of a sudden to like really have to be faced with this thing at 22 years old of like, wait, we have 3 people on this team. How much money should everybody be making? How much money does it cost to run this thing? Oh my God, how are we going to do this?
I would say one more takeaway too is that, you know, I wouldn't be as concerned with how many people are watching, but instead who's watching. Because, you know, our company ended up getting acquired by a bigger sports media company in New York. But up to that point, we felt really strongly about what we were doing, but we were not certain that it was going to have some sort of future like it has today, right? But because of the certain people who were watching our videos, it did have a future.
Right. Like if you, and I've said this before, but if you have one person, say 10 people, 100 people that go to your website every week, and you are a personal trainer, if that turns into 1 client or 2 clients a month, that's all you need to start to build a business and to make some money, especially if you're, say, a higher end personal trainer where you're charging a lot for each workout session. So it's very much about the quality of your audience. And even if, you know, everybody wants to have great numbers and you know, maybe that helps with a little bit with clout. But at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of email subscribers, you have to pay for, you know, MailChimp has certain tiers where if you have 10,000 email subscribers, you're paying a whole lot more money. So if they don't like the stuff that you're sending them, you're wasting a lot of money and time on them.
I also think on that note about audience. So this past week, I took my girlfriend to go see Justin Timberlake at the Forum.
Wow, treating her.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? This is a sold out show at the Forum, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around. I'm like, this is an overwhelming amount of people. I was just thinking about like, man, what would it be like to perform for this amount of people? And then I got on my phone and I was like, how many people fit in the Forum? 17,000 people. How many times have I made a video that has been seen by 17,000 people? I was like, I guess I have performed in front of this many people before. And to sink back into it, like we get caught up, I think, in the numbers a lot of like, man, this video only has 2,000 views. And you start to really think about it. Man, 2,000 people just watched a piece of art that I made? That's pretty crazy. I think it was a creator, Justin Oshido, who tweeted a photo of a room with 20 people in it. And it looked packed. He's like, this is what 20 people looks like. And it puts things in perspective when you're creating that. Like, we get caught up in these numbers. But even like if you put 100 people in a room and you showed them your movie, it would be pretty powerful. It would be an awesome experience to share that with that many people. And so starting to realize like, man, this, even if you're creating for 20 or 100 people, it shouldn't be discouraging. It actually could be really encouraging and push you to continue creating. And over time that could grow, but it's powerful to create for 100 people. So
yeah, and I think I think about this a lot, that we just get way too caught up in the numbers. And I think everybody must have this experience where you upload an Instagram photo and you have the certain number that you usually get. But, I remember a time when it was like 50 likes. And if I got 20, I'd be like, damn, man, that
I've
post
lost
was
a step.
shit. Yeah, exactly. Like, what happened on that one? It was the algorithm or whatever. And then you get to a point where you're getting 100. And then that just becomes the new normal. And then 1,000, whatever it is. And as you grow, then it's like, am I crazy that I was satisfied with 50 at one point, but now it takes 1,000 for me to be satisfied, which is just, you have to really put things in perspective and just appreciate every time you grow or every time you put something out, and not expect that this is going to, reach this amount.
I'll never forget exactly where I was the first time I saw one of our videos on the Lacrosse Network hit 300 views. I was freaking out. I really thought about it. I was like, 300 people watched this video. That's crazy. I actually, at that point, made a deck to try and pitch sponsors that 300 people were watching our videos.
Yeah. Our early marketing material is hilarious.
It's hilarious. We're like, 300 dedicated fans are watching our content, and we were so proud of it. But again, I think it was such a blessing to be naive about it.
Yeah.
And just to be like, this is so new and this is crazy.
You guys talked a little bit about making money and kind of monetizing, and now you do the YouTube, was it AdSense, the monetization on your YouTube videos. What other ways do you see you guys making money? Well, like, how are you making money now? Are you still doing some freelance work on the side? Are you working on the clothing line? And then what do you see for the future of monetization on your channel?
So it's fascinating because in 2012, there was really only one way that I thought you made money on YouTube, which was AdSense. Over time, you start to realize that there's, I think having our company be acquired by a bigger company is what opened our eyes, because now there was a sales department and there was expectations on us too to make money doing what we were doing. There's a lot of pressure and expectation to say, okay, you need to turn this into a profitable division of the company. And so then we start to learn, okay, so branded content. So you make videos and you partner with a brand and they pay money to get their message across to a dedicated group of people that fits their audience. And something that we learned, and we knew this, we believed in this, that our audience was more passionate than other audiences. They were more engaged than other audiences. They were more valuable to advertisers than other audiences. And we truly believed that. And then finally, when we had a sales team to support us, we were able to tell that story and get brands on board. And then we started doing branded content, and branded content became the primary source of revenue for us. And that was like this new, really exciting thing, because for us also, when we had brands involved, we had a higher budget and we could make better content that we thought was like what the community deserved, was this kind of content, because we were operating at a $0 content budget. So when a brand would get involved, we had more budget. And then we started doing more brand partnerships and started bringing more brands into the space. And now, branded content is the primary way that that the Lacrosse Network makes money, and actually the primary way that we make money. But there's so many other avenues today to make money on YouTube. The thing that you have to realize is that what you're doing when you're growing an online brand is you're building an audience, and you're essentially building influence, right? And so you're creating something where you can give a message to an audience and they trust you because you've developed a relationship with them. And so if you're going to bring a brand on and communicate their message to that audience, that's valuable. If you're going to sell a product to that audience, or you're going to create merchandise that connects with that audience, that's valuable. If there's kit affiliate links, there's gear recommendations where you can get, paid off of that. There's so many different avenues, but at the end of the day, at the core of it, you're building an audience and communicating a message to them. And there's tons of different ways to monetize that today.
Yeah, and I think influencer is sometimes a misnomer, because and I've seen this too with just people that I know. And if you watch the interactions with certain people, it's just because you have a large following doesn't mean that you're an influencer. It doesn't mean your audience trusts you or appreciates you or wants to actually would listen to your advice when you say, hey guys, go get these headphones. Because I use them and they add a lot of value to my life. Like, that's a huge thing. And that's where the trust and authenticity and all these things, it's really at the core, it's just being a good person.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Just be a good person, be nice, and really have the best intentions for your audience and really try to help them. And if you're not, I think in a lot of ways that comes across, and even if you're like being a shitty person and you're doing really well and you're successful, like, I don't even care. That's not for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd rather not walk all over people in order to get to the top.
I think our mindset too was that like the lacrosse audience was an underserved audience, right? Like there wasn't enough media in the space, and we believed that there needed to be more quality content to therefore like grow the messaging of the sport, and that the audience deserved that. So if we were going to have a brand come in to the space, we really wanted them to help us make the content better so that it was more shareable and that the community would feel proud of what they were watching and the community that they were a part of. So we try and do the same thing today with our personal brand. When we talk to brands, is understand like, how can we make a custom piece of content that our audience would actually be really excited about? The fact that like we got the opportunity to make it and that the brand helped us make it, so even like just not necessarily just like reads and things like that, but how can we do something very like unique and specific that was exciting for us to do and hopefully exciting for our audience to watch?
And we said no and still say no to a lot of opportunities. And primarily because we feel like we build trust with our audience and we are just making content that we think is cool. And so if a brand's going to come in and help us make more content that we think is cool or provide value to our audience, that's when we feel like it's a good brand partnership. Now that's not super business minded, but it's the way that it's what we enjoy about making content is having a connection with our audience.
I think it actually is, like, in the long run. You're playing the long game. Because it's easy to just sell out real quick and like, promote Skittles on your podcast.
Right.
By the way, go get your Skittles.
Right. Yeah.
But like, if you actually have the best intentions, then it would make more sense to only do one advertisement on this episode versus 5.
And it actually, that whole process over time actually opened us up to work with brands in a really unique way, which was, hey, we want to get involved and you guys give us an idea. Whatever you think is best, we'll work with that. And that was pretty powerful. I mean, I think it was probably working with Nike was the first time that we really pitched them ideas that we were like, these are our ideas. And they were like, yeah, those all sound good. And we were like,
you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah. Are you?
Yeah. Do you want us to change?
And they're like,
are you sure about
no, we're
that?
good. And we're like,
they're like, no, we trust you guys because you guys have built the audience.
Yeah.
You guys have built the connection. And that was like, I mean, so empowering to be like, oh, we know what's best, not you.
I think also something about us, like we're fans of branded content because of the space that we grew up in. Like having been on YouTube for 6 years and watching like Casey Neistat's 4-part piece on Mercedes, that was something that we talk about and we're really excited about. So when we got the opportunities to do branded content 3-4 years ago, we couldn't wait to sort of take the extra funds there and do something really interesting or really unique. So I think that's something also that's a little bit different. Like we actually have a lot of pride in branded content and like what it can be.
Like you can actually be clever and creative with it, and you can actually make it your own.
We actually, so in growing a YouTube channel, like as you start growing, and I'm sure you know this, Matt, like as you start growing, people reach out with opportunities, right? Okay, hey, can you talk about this product? Hey, can you do this? And actually something that we say our response and what we have in our mind is that we'd like to grow bigger and have the opportunity to do custom content with these brands, because we think that coming up with like a custom idea for branded content, that's what drives us. That's what's super interesting, is if we can partner with a brand and come up with an idea that's not, hey, like you said, like this podcast is brought to you by Skittles, or hey, this
damn Skittles is
Skittles is getting in right now.
They're getting in. Yeah, by the way, get your Skittles. But but not just saying it like that, but really like, can we create an experience and a piece of content that connects with people on a deeper level because they're involved.
But then you also get a higher CPM, like the rate in which you would charge an advertiser. Like most podcasts get like a 15 CPM, which is like every 1,000 people that download a podcast, you get $12 or $15.
Yeah.
But then the higher end ones, the ones like the Tim Ferriss's and Joe Rogan's, will get anywhere from 50 to 100 because their audience sells shit out. Like when Tim Ferriss mentions something on his podcast, the next day that brand is just like undersupplied.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I cleared out my Whole Foods of their like mushroom elixir after I listened to
mushroom elixir. Yeah, that's the new one.
Chaga. I'm like drinking all kinds of mushrooms now because of Tim.
Yeah,
so,
they're great.
They're great. Yeah.
I've been doing the nootropics from Rogan. I don't know if you heard of those.
No, I haven't
heard of that. No.
It's called Alpha Brain.
Oh yeah, I've seen it in Whole Foods.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I took it before. Take it before every podcast.
Oh, that's You're kind of firing.
We should have
now.
brought the chaga mushrooms.
Yeah. Normally I'm just like my eyes are half awake on these podcasts. I just started. I would recommend it. I think it works quite well. It's a noticeable difference. Basically, it's like your how quickly you can recall words and how sharp your memory is, and whether it's like a 10 or 15, 20% increase, it certainly helps.
Yeah, you sold me.
So
it's cool.
Yeah.
It's like a mushroom. It's like
Yeah.
some kind of mushroom derivative.
One thing about making money on YouTube is like in businesses today, it's like the best thing you could do is start putting out a product and getting feedback. And like however easy it is, right? Like in tech for like apps, you release a beta version to a small group of users and you get feedback and then you keep refining it. And then finally, once it's ready, you launch it and then you build in the direction of monetizing it. So I think on a YouTube channel, it's kind of the same thing. Like you get to put out something that has a really low barrier and start building over time. Like again, our first videos were made with a MacBook. It was the camera we had to make videos. And over time, it became something that making our videos was actually a viable business. Like making videos together was a viable business. And now we're on camera and create videos for brands that, then that's our business. But it all started with like a really low barrier, which was like open a MacBook, record, and straight from whatever the app was, photo booth or something, there was an share to YouTube. That's how we made our videos. It was just like, okay, there's no editing. There's I think it was so awkward that most of those videos have like a 5-second delay of us staring at the camera and then being like,
oh, okay.
Hey,
like,
right.
What's up,
welcome.
guys?
Yeah, hi.
And we weren't cutting them. Like we were editors, but we weren't cutting them. It was just, what's the lowest barrier to start getting this product out and testing the market? And there was, it built over time. There was an appetite for that kind of content.
With the Lacrosse Network, do you still work with them now?
Yeah, so we're still on camera, and we consult for the company. But there's a team of 5 guys in New York, and they operate the network. They're, a great team. They work out of the Whistle Sports office in New York, which is the company that acquired our company. And it's still a process. They have great brand partners. They create content. They're learning, the same way that we were learning when we first started creating content. It's amazing to me that there is a team of people that work on this idea. I mean, one of my dreams when we first started it was, I used to tell my brother this, that I had 2 goals. One was work with Nike, and 2 was I wanted to be able to watch the Lacrosse Network as a fan, like be able to step away from it and just watch the channel as a fan of the sport, because it was something I always wanted to exist. I just wanted it to exist. And so today, we still interact with the company, but watching content that we weren't a part of that comes out now, and other people's creativity coming out and it has distribution and there's fans who interact with it, that's the coolest thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a guy who went to Colorado, played lacrosse there, 4 years younger than us, who posted on Facebook last year, can't believe I just got a job with Lacrosse Network, and tagged it.
Wow.
And I was like, that's about as cool as it gets, because that wasn't a thing.
Right.
Like to be able to say that and do that. And now he, moved from Colorado to New York City and lives there and works there and travels the country filming and editing. it's just incredible to me. It's one of the coolest things.
It's so cool. Something that you guys built. Let's talk a little bit about vlogging. I feel like, so I don't shit on vlogging at all, but
feels like you're about to.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
about to
yeah.
take a
It's
big
an interesting
old
way to start.
steaming dump on top of vlogging. No, but what I have been saying is like, a lot of people encourage people to kind of create and release all the time, every day. And what I've been saying is slow down a little bit, try to be a little bit more thoughtful. I think it depends where you are in the creative process. If you're just getting started out, it probably makes more sense to create more and just keep releasing. But as you kind of get into it and you become better at the craft, I feel like we need to take a step back and be thoughtful, because like, you know, the everyday vlog, it's not going to work for everybody, and people's lives aren't that interesting. You know, it's hard to keep that and make that sustainable to where people might start that and eventually give up. So I feel like you guys have found a really great balance, and when I watch your vlogs, it's and your videos in general, it just feels pretty effortless, you know, in the best way. Like it feels like you could watch them all day, and nothing feels forced about it. So I want to talk a little bit about vlogging. You guys can just go from there. Like, what is your process about creating these videos and creating the vlogs that you do these days? And do you call them vlogs, or?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, some of them are vlogs. Some of them
Yeah,
are...
when I look at our channel, I think we have all types of content. There's like video essays, short mini documentaries, and then there's vlogs. So yeah, I think we have like a mix of types of content.
So how do you approach just the video creation, idea generation for your channel?
Generally, idea comes from both of us talking, or it comes from one or the other. And then Samir comes in a lot with like the execution of like which day we're going to be filming this video, what supplies we need, how we're going to get there, who I need to call, playing more of like the producer director role. We go out, we both film, but I do the majority of the filming, and then I come back, take the footage, edit, and I'm more of like the writer editor in this group. So I'll take the video to like 75, 80%, and then we'll kind of like get back together and take a look at what we have.
There's two types, not two, but there's a few different types of videos that we create right now. When it's like truly an experience, like a vlog where we're going to go through something and bring you along, there's a lot less planning prior. It's like, we're going to bring cameras, and we have a sense, because we've been doing it for a while, of like which shots we need, how do we need to tell the story, are there like going to be missing dots? And we're both editors, so we both, as we're filming, are editing, and we both know each other's editing style, and we know what we like. So like when we're recording, we know like, okay, this is a transition moment, I'm going to do a whip pan, or like this is a moment where I need to say this to get us to the next part of the story in real time. So we film in that way when we're vlogging, and it's like an experience that we're bringing along. I think that the concept there is like, bring a camera and let life unfold in front of you. That's one way about it. The other type of content is like, okay, we write a concept beforehand, and we have a general outline for it, and we know which points we want to hit, and we know the direction of the video. Okay, let's go. Now we have this on our phone or somewhere, close by, and we know the general direction, but it's a lot of improv. It's just like, so much of our content we feel like is based off of our rapport and the way that we communicate with the audience. And so we want to leave room for spontaneity. We want to leave room for authenticity, because we feel like that's what we want to come through as much as possible in the content. So we create like an outline, and there's big spaces, right? Where it's like, all right, we know we want to go from here to here to here. So let's start and let's see what happens. And we know we want to end up here.
My favorite things to watch are really the mix between the two. So like, I really enjoy when we go out and we vlog, and then we take the footage and we think, how can we add voiceover to this? How can we get extra B-roll or source footage and make this into a documentary video essay style piece, but we also went out and experienced something in real life. So you have these like moments that you couldn't recreate, right? Where like they happened for the first time because we were vlogging and we had the camera on. But then we contextualize them within like a documentary video essay format.
Yeah, I love that style. And I think it's never like, a lot of times we see something, it seems obvious in hindsight, like, oh, of course that's the way they ended up telling that story. But a lot of times creation and storytelling is very messy, and it's a lot of trial and error. Like there was a video I was just working on where I was trying to deliver it on camera and then go to voiceover, and it's just something about it wasn't working. I'm like, my delivery wasn't right, and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just scrap the me on camera in the beginning, and I'll just do the entire thing straight voiceover. And there's like 1,000 of those different decisions that you make on every video that you didn't know you were going to make before you started it. Mm-hmm. So has there been a video style that's resonated best with your audience? Like, are more drawn towards the vlogs, the more thought out scripted videos? What's been the draw there?
I mean, our biggest videos are our more thought out scripted videos, but they also target communities on YouTube that have, larger audiences. We were actually just looking at our analytics last night and just talking through them. And, we right now are in a process with this channel where we're trying to find our voice. We're coming from a brand that stood for a community and a sport. And now we're Colin and Samir. We're two guys and we have to define ourselves. And we've made a ton of different types of content. So the important thing for us now is like we look at what really performs and what does the best. And then we have to find the intersection of like what we're really passionate about creating as well. And find where those two things meet. And so like the stuff that performs really well for us is like the scripted stuff. Like, and I say scripted in the sense that like we just wrote some voiceover or wrote out some points and we kind of knew what the video was going to be beforehand.
Yeah. And we like targeted a community on YouTube to try and like latch that video onto. So we made a video about Will Smith and talked about the reasons why we think he's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And that was right at the onset of Will Smith starting a YouTube channel and starting to vlog. So every time Will Smith put out a video, our video was the only other like ancillary content that would be surfaced about his channel.
Yeah, and one thing that we've realized through like looking at our data of what drives a video to get to that, like for us right now, to get to that like 100,000 or 200,000 viewership level is retention time. So if people are watching more of the video, it's going to surface more in people's feed, right? If they're watching 70 or 80% of the video, then it's going to get pushed more by YouTube. So that's a really important piece for us when we're sitting back and looking at a video is, is there a reason to stay all the way till the end? Is there, is it engaging throughout the entire piece of content? Are we telling the right story? Are we keeping you, on the edge of your seat throughout the piece of content? Because what's really important is retention time. If we make a 4-minute video, we want you to watch 4 minutes of it. If we make a 10-minute video and we're going to push the time, much higher up, 10, 15 minutes, then we need to make sure that we're creating a system or creating a piece of content and writing it in a way that keeps you throughout that entire thing.
Right, because a title or thumbnail will get somebody to click a video, but YouTube's not going to push it and promote it if people are clicking right away. You need, and which is just, when it comes down to it, it's just make good content. Clickbait can only go so far and do so well, especially in the very beginning when everybody else is doing it. And BuzzFeed might be able to get away with doing all these clickbait titles because they have a huge audience and they probably make their content compelling enough to pull people through. But it's just the best motivation just to make great content and focus on that, and don't even think about algorithms or how this thumbnail is going to be perceived by a viewer.
Yeah, and even if you look at BuzzFeed, like their content has had to change and get a lot better. If you look at shows like Worth It or like Try Guys, they're all concepts that like will keep you to the end, even though they're good titles and thumbnails.
Yeah, I want to correct myself. I did say do not focus on the thumbnails and titles at all. I don't think that's true. I think there's a balance, right? I think like just don't spend an exorbitant amount of your time on those things, whether it's 10 or 1% of your time on
I think a good system though is to think about prior to making a video, like what's the title, what's the thumbnail, because it is, if you're making content for YouTube, it's such a part of the game. But then you have to really think, does my content reflect that? And then another step is, does my content from second one to the end of the video keep you? Like if you, what's the process of a viewer coming to this video? Okay, they saw the title, they saw the thumbnail, they clicked on it. What happens in the first 5 seconds? Does it reflect the title and thumbnail and create some sort of tension or conflict or drama to make them stay till the end, or some reason or some utility? And then, through the end, okay, I want to stay all the way through the end. I think your content does a great job of that.
Thank you, man.
I really do.
You guys too.
Yeah, I think like I click on one of your videos and it's titled something and there's they're branded in different ways. So I can understand if it's something from Ground Up Show or something from, a thought that you have around minimalism or, something that like utility I'm going to get out of it. And I click on it and within the first 5 seconds, I'm getting exactly what I thought I was getting. And it's like digestible enough for me to finish the entire video. and then actually want to share it because I think I just got what I asked for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think it's
that's
just like best practices as a content creator to think about the title and thumbnail.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, you are very straightforward with like title, thumbnail, and you click on it first 5 seconds. It is what you clicked on, and then you watch to the end. If you weren't doing that, it would be doing a disservice to your content and to the people who are watching. So I think it is good to think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, somebody asked me, because I talk a lot about making meaningful content, which is just a way of saying be thoughtful about what you're creating. And that's really all it takes. I mean, also then act with good intentions. But like if I put a lot of extra thought into like what like you guys do, put a lot of thought, well, what should I title this? Is that clickbaity? Does that feel like it's manipulative? Like, is somebody actually getting the value that I say that they're going to get out of this video? And you can get away with a lot, but I try not to. And I'm like, all right, I just really need to be mindful that people know what they're getting out of it, and that they actually are going to get some kind of value. And like value it could just be funny. It could just be a sketch, or it could be I try to include both of them in a lot of the videos that I make, which is like, I'll just make stupid, dumb jokes, and then I always want to back it up. Like, I think the one video I did was living with a non-minimalist, which was me and my girlfriend, just like how we live together. She's not a minimalist at all, and I am. And it just started out with this idea of doing a sketch of me opening up, being like, hey guys, so I want to tell you a little bit about how we live together as a minimalist. It all starts with timing. So I wait until Natalie falls asleep, and then like I put headphones over her ears and just brainwash her with all these minimalism ideas. And I was like, oh, that'd be a funny little sketch to make. But then I was like, I can't just leave it as a sketch. I need to actually deliver some kind of value. So then after that, it would transition into like us talking about our relationship and like the things that we get out of it. Because you want your audience not to just like, I'm not trying to create popcorn. I want to create something that people actually feel fulfilled and learn something by the end of it. What advice would you give to people who want to start vlogging specifically? And not exactly like a practical how-to guide, like buy this camera, buy this mic, do this, do that. But like, what's like the overall ethos that they should be following?
I would say have a plan before you go into it, because if you don't, you'll just be looking at life and getting stressed about what you're filming and what you're not filming and what's happening and what's not happening, right? But if you really have an intention and a plan for what's going to happen the next day, and you understand what the value would be to an audience member, then it's really easy for you to go throughout your day, or it's a lot easier to go throughout your day and make sure you're hitting the points of your plan.
I think on like definitely on that side for sure. Have some sort of plan and understanding. But additionally, like if you say to yourself, man, I want to be a vlogger, I want to put myself on camera, it's something you have to do every day. You don't have to put it out every day, but you have to do it every day. So that might be like, okay, I want to talk to my cell phone and, put up an Instagram story and say something to an audience. I got to do that every day. And then I can graduate to talking to a camera, and then I can watch the footage every night of how I talked to a camera, how I told the story, how I did this vlog. And then I can finally, when I'm comfortable, I can put it up and get some feedback, and then I can do it all over again. Because it's the same way of being an athlete or going to the gym. Like, it's reps. It's just doing it a lot. A lot of people comment on our videos or send us a question like, hey, I'm so uncomfortable on camera. I don't think I could ever become a vlogger. How do I do this? And it's like, well, yeah, I was super uncomfortable too when I first started, and I'm still sometimes uncomfortable, but I do it all the time. And when you do something over and over and over again, you get better at it. It's like a pretty simple equation. So I think like we have so many tools to tell stories to a camera now. You have one in your pocket at all times, and just practicing that and understanding that it doesn't have to come out, and you can watch it and refine it before you're ready. Someone asked us last week, did a collaboration with an artist from Instagram, and he said like, what do people underestimate about you guys or about your creative process? And for me, it's like, I think people underestimate how much content doesn't come out. There's a lot of our content that has stayed on hard drives or just hasn't come out or has changed, or we've recorded a video and cut it together and looked at it and been like, well, I don't like that. I want to do it again. And then we do it again, or we don't put it out and we change the idea and we do something different. And like, so much of the process is just doing it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, the more you get to know your audience, the easier that vlogging will become, right? Because if you're staring into a camera, there's no like personality to that camera. You don't know like who that person is on the other end. But the more you actually put out content and you read the comments and you see how people are reacting to the things that you're saying, the more you'll know how to speak to that camera, because that camera will build a personality around it.
What stops people from creating, from making the first video or taking their first photo?
I think too much of a broad concept of what it means to be creative. So what I mean by that is when I was in film school, every assignment we had restrictions around it, right? It was like, I remember one assignment specifically was like a 5-minute long take. And so we had to create a film that was a 5-minute long take, or it was like, all right, you have to make something with no sound, or you have to make something with in black and white. So when you have restrictions, it becomes a lot easier to create. So if no one's going to give you restrictions, you have to create guidelines yourself and say, okay, I'm going to create something and it's going to be about food. And then you're like, all right, so now I need to figure out how I'm going to shoot this thing about food. But I think the biggest thing about, like, the biggest barrier to entry in creativity is just not having a prompt or an idea or like a, restrictions or guidelines around what you want to create when you're just free to create anything. Like
everybody talks about, like, you need to make consistent content, and I do agree that that's important. But for you guys and how you're creating specifically, what's too much? What's too little when you're thinking about your YouTube channel?
I think for us, we kind of span between two different thoughts on that. It's either we're going to go daily and make sure that our audience knows we're there every day. And if we're not, then we need to have a schedule and make sure we're communicating exactly when they can expect our content, even if that's once a week. Currently, we're not going daily and we're not communicating our schedule. So that's something that we work on is making sure that moving forward, we can communicate exactly when you can watch.
You mentioned, Matt, that like communication in any partnership or relationship is really important. And what you understand when you create an online brand or start creating content online is that you're in a relationship with the audience. And so you have to communicate to them when you're going to release content. And so that could be like every Monday at 5 p.m. this comes out, or you can expect my podcast every Tuesday, but you have to communicate to them what they can expect from you. Otherwise, there's no trust. There's no, communication. You can't build a healthy relationship with the audience.
Yeah, and I think it's important to start that from the very beginning, even when there is no audience. Because sometimes if you're just starting out, consistency feels not as important in that sense. Because you're like, well, like nobody is expecting or waiting to hear from me every Wednesday from my podcast. But there's other benefits of that as well. It's like the one is, like you said, you keep working on something, you keep getting better at it. Yeah. So if you force yourself to be consistent, you're going to get better at that which you create. But then eventually when you do build that audience, they'll grow to expect your content weekly.
You also put a restriction around it, right? Yeah. And restrictions really encourage creativity. I get something out every Wednesday. Okay, now I all of a sudden have a prompt. I have to create a podcast by Wednesday.
It's a mini deadline. It's a deadline. A deadline every week.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the hardest thing for a freelance creative or someone who's trying to grow a brand is like, I could create anything and it could come out whenever. And that's super hard to do.
Yeah, I would say even if you have a small audience as well, pay a lot of attention to that audience. Like whatever audience you do have, use them to understand how you would operate if you had a huge audience. Right. So you want to like really cater your content to that small community because they will be your advocates and tell their friends. Right. And they're a great sample for you to start building and testing and understanding how would I act if I had 1 million subscribers.
And rather than focusing on audience growth, focus on giving your current audience the best experience like you can possibly give them, because they will carry you. Right. They will carry your message. They will push people to your platform if they get really passionate about you. And they're like that relationship between you and the few people who are watching your content in the beginning, it's the most important. Don't look at, audience growth. It will happen over time if you're really building a deep relationship with your current audience.
Yeah, that's one thing that frustrates me about certain agencies. All they focus on is getting new clients,
right,
versus taking care of the clients they have. Or if I even look at something as subtle as when I go to log in to, say, Dropbox or another online software app, is it easier for the user that's always coming there every day to log in, or are they designing it so then it's the person that they're trying to acquire? And for most people, they're just trying to acquire a new user. So It's not like the sign in button is on the top right and it's super tiny versus like big, like new members, sign up here. And I always think like they're not designing this experience for people that use it every day, which is super
Hmm.
bizarre. I mean, just because people get swallowed up in that corporate structure of like, got to make more money, got to grow every quarter. You know, we have a board of directors that needs to see results. And that's, I think, one of the downsides of, you know, growing into a big organization or like scaling too quickly.
Yeah.
Are there any business tools that you guys use? Like, are there tools or certain strategies, I guess, like that have helped you guys the most with what you're creating? Whether it's an app that schedules your social media posts or something, a plugin on YouTube or a feature on YouTube that really helps you guys. Are there things that come out where you're like, wow, our life would be way more difficult if we didn't have these?
I think we make our life more difficult
by not using
those
things,
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could totally use a lot of tools to support us. So I don't know that we, you know, use any of those. I think like we use MailChimp, which is great, but we could be using a lot more.
Well, one thing you guys definitely use that you may not even think about is like the end of your videos, you'll put up like the subscribe button to actually click.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes, because I actually don't do that. Do you think that makes a big difference in terms of conversions?
Actually, don't think it does.
You don't think it does?
I don't think it does. I think it's good to have it there. It's like good practice, but I actually don't think. I think you need to actually like say to your audience, like, please go subscribe and do this. And hopefully you've built that trust with them so that they'll do it.
Yeah, I think a call to action is the thing. And it's like, it's a button that represents that action, but just reiterating the call to action of like, hey, subscribe to the channel.
I've been simplifying that front where I used to do 3 calls to actions where it's just like different, like, oh, somebody, you might like this for behind the scenes, or you might like this if you like podcasts or whatever, where now I'm like, maybe I should just focus on one, and then I'll probably have, you know, a better conversion on just that one push. What about in your personal lives?
I just downloaded this app called Freedom, which is like a social media app that essentially, it's funny that you have to download an app to make you more free. But it's kind of what you said about like Moment. It's this app that essentially shuts down your social media for hours, and you can set a timer. So you're like, all right, for the next 3 hours, don't let me open Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't have that app, but I probably will be downloading that.
Yeah, me too.
So,
that's cool.
It's called Freedom. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So it just locks you out of these apps. You can't click on it?
Yeah. I mean, you click on it and it just doesn't even open.
Yeah.
I had a friend, amazing entrepreneur who's just gone on to launch and sell a bunch of businesses. But one thing he did, I was sitting with him in a coffee shop and he showed me if you typed facebook.com into his browser, it redirected to a Google Doc of his life goals.
What?
And I thought that was amazing because he was like, anytime I'm possibly going to get distracted, it redirects me to show me how lofty my life goals are, and that going on Facebook's not going to help me do that.
That is so good. I love that.
Yeah, I love that. And that is something I believe in, just like remembering your dreams and what you're trying to achieve. Because I think, you know, Colin and I, we talk about a life that we imagine and the dreams we have. And I've had these dreams since I was a little kid, and like I want to achieve certain goals when it comes to creating content and making films, and they're all possible if I'm willing to put in the time and the effort into it. And there's so many distractions around you, and it's so challenging to block them out, and sometimes you need help to do that. You have to create systems for yourself to actually block those out and remind you what you're trying to do, especially when it feels like years have gone by and you have made minimal progress towards those goals.
And I think you're catching us at a time when we're creating or we're consuming a lot more than we're creating. We're launching on new platforms, and you know, we're really active on Twitter now, but I find that now I have another social media app that I'm consuming tons of content on that I'm not sure it's really benefiting and helping me reach our goals, right? So we're in this time when we're trying to figure out how to limit some of our consumption.
I think that's key, is the writing down of what you actually want and putting it on paper, putting it in a Google Doc, whatever it is. For me, it was, I wrote out a bucket list and I just wrote on it, make a documentary about something I really care about. And that was 6 months before we started making minimalism, before the idea even came up. And it, you know, I don't necessarily believe in The Secret, but like, I think that there is something about putting your intentions down. And like, for me, then that just became a real thing. And then I was like, and that, for out of all those ones, and I didn't do most of them, some of them were just like random shit. I was like, I'm trying to think of a way to fill up a list. but that one just stuck out to me, and I was like, I gotta make that happen. And then I'm actually doing it again now. If you see over your shoulder here, I've got a photo of The Rock. I don't know if you guys have heard about this.
I've been following this, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's my big, crazy, impossible goal. I think everybody needs to have just goals that people think are insane, would never work in a million years, because that 1 in a million shot, if it does pay off, just how fucking cool. How cool
totally.
Would that be?
Yeah.
And most people aren't. Like, I haven't seen anybody else try to get The Rock on their podcast. So I think I'm the only person that is really going to this length to try to get him on. I had one huge win. One crazy win, which was he tweeted it back at me. I don't know if you saw that one.
I saw that.
That was a
crazy day, huh?
Yo, I was like shaking.
Yeah.
Like it's weird because like, in my head I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play it cool. I'll be totally cool. Like if I get connected with The Rock, like, hey, what's up, man? Like, and then I'm like, when I saw him tweet at me, I was like fangirling out, and then I calmed down because I was like, just keep your shit together, Matt. This is embarrassing. But that's like part of the fun. And like I was so naive in the very beginning, and I was like, well, I hope he doesn't respond too quickly and comes on my podcast right away.
Right.
Right? Because I'm like, I want this to be a journey. And now it really is. It's been a year in progress. I haven't talked about it on the podcast in a little while. So I'm curious if you guys have any advice for me. You guys have done a couple similar things where it's like meet Yes Theory in 24 hours, do kind of these crazy big ideas. What advice would you give me for landing The Rock on the podcast?
Oh man, we had okay. So meeting Casey Neistat for us, like for me, watching Casey since, before started the YouTube channel in 2011, again, like watching the way he did branded content, that's everything I wanted to do, right? And so just like so much of watching how he operated his life and his YouTube channel, I was like, this is why I want to go on YouTube. This is what I want to do. And we finally had an opportunity in Jersey, in the Garden State.
Beautiful place.
It is.
To spend, 20 seconds with him?
Yep.
I saw that video. Yeah, it was amazing.
And we basically verbally exploded
with everything we could say about ourselves in 25 seconds.
He did not speak for the 20 seconds until the tail end. We spoke for all of it and just talked about ourselves. Didn't say anything else.
We had 20 seconds from the time that he finished his speech to the time he walked out the door. Spoke the whole time, and then at the end he just said, "Congrats on all your success. Like, that's great, guys." And we were like, what did we just do?
Yeah. Like here's a guy that, we look up to, and that he, really inspired a lot of our goals and our mission. And we got to meet him, and we just talked about ourselves. And I think my advice to you would be like, really start to think about like, what do you want to get out of this interaction? Because I think for me, selfishly, it was like validation. I wanted to like tell him all the things I had done and the successes we had, and just have him look at me and be like, wow, you're the next big thing. You're amazing. But when he left and he said something like that, like, wow, congrats on your success, both of us were like, we felt so empty. It was like, that's not what we were looking for.
Should have just said like, hey, thanks. Like, we've been really inspired by your content and the things that you've been doing. Like, it's really helped us.
And so really understanding, like, personally, what do you want out of that interaction with The Rock? Because at the end of the day, it's a guy, right? It's a guy who has done a lot of really inspiring things, and something about him is connecting with you on some level. But interacting with him, like when you interact with him, what is it that you want out of that interaction? And I don't think I was clear on that when we met Casey at all.
That was the realest advice that I've gotten on that question yet. Yeah. But I think that actually gets to the heart and of the only way this would ever be a success. If you focus on the why, like, why do I truly want to sit down with The Rock? And there's a reason, and there has been from the beginning. And it's, the more you do it, the more you get into it, you're just like, what are these crazy ideas? And like, that's part of it. Like to come up with these far-fetched ideas, make every phone call you can to get a hold of him, but never losing sight on the why. Like, why do I want The Rock on my podcast?
Yeah. And I think for us, like as time went on, like we wanted to meet the guys from Yes Theory primarily because we were just like, wow, these guys are amazing at telling stories. They're like really good content creators.
Yeah, and they live right here in Venice.
And they live really close to us. So we feel like we should be connected with them. And we did it the only way we knew how, which was like make a video about it. And they really they're awesome guys. They were really, energized by the concept, and, invited us over to their place to close out our video, and we met them. And I think we really understood what it was like to meet someone that you were inspired by after meeting Casey and going through a couple other similar things like that. And today we're like super close with them. We make videos with them. We get coffee and lunch and learn things from them. And like, we have an authentic relationship with those guys, and it's awesome. And they're creatives in our, hometown. Guys like you're a guy that we were really inspired by, and we look up to when it comes to content creation and branding, and like being able to sit down and have a conversation that's just like normal and grow into a real relationship. You start to like learn a lot about that, about, if you feel like you're playing at a certain level, and there's people in I guess who are doing similar things, like there's ways to authentically connect and not like try and get something out of them, or have them take you to the next level. I don't know. I guess that's what I would say, is that we really learned how to authentically connect with people that we wanted to connect with.
Yeah, and I get more excited about these kind of connections, people that are at a similar place to me, than I do about like landing the big interviews and getting the people that are super well established and have millions of followers or subscribers or have been doing it for 10 years, because I'm like, there's more opportunity for just friendship, collaboration, to be able to connect and build a relationship from there. And then also like, I see this a lot with comedy, like stand-up comics. Like a lot of people would want to be friends with those that are super established. But like when you get into it, you're working and hanging out with people every day who are at the same tier as you. Like everybody's struggling. And then when somebody makes it or has a big hit, they bring their friends and the people that worked with them along the way. And I think that's what everything is, right? It's all about the relationships that you build along the way. If you're just doing it by yourself, it wouldn't be as fun.
And that's all stems back to like asking why. I think you talked about it in Unstuck about journaling. I always knew that it was important to write things down, but I didn't fully understand what I was doing. And now I write in a notebook all the time. And most of it is to like sort out my thoughts about why I'm even doing what I'm doing with my time. Like why do I wake up in the morning and create videos for a living, or not, to try and make that my career? Why am I trying to make this my career? And really, unraveling that and being like, okay, I do this because I enjoy bringing an idea to life. I enjoy connecting with others. And so Colin says this all the time, but I'll let him talk about it more, but like just finding the thing that you want to do, whether you made money doing it or not, and then trying to make that your career, understanding why you're doing all this makes for more authentic relationships when you meet other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think the only way you find success in making videos is through longevity. And the only way there's longevity in what you're doing is if you enjoy it. So I always try and ask myself as I'm going through these processes, is this something I'm enjoying? And hand in hand with that is, am I connecting with people in real life? Because for me, like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a community around myself in real life through content creation. I think it's one of the best ways to do it. The fact that we're even here talking right now, we live in the same city. We've been able to meet Yes Theory. We've had tons of creators come through our office and our studio. And it's totally enriched our lives over the past 2 months to have that be a part of our lives.
Man, you would just never expect where you could go with something. And we're so early into this thing too. Like I started taking this seriously and just doing original content maybe a year and a half ago is when I had the inkling of an idea to start it. And like, I'm like, it's just, you just blow yourself away with your like, holy shit. Like I thought in the beginning, like that I was at the end of my story, right? Or like cause in every way you are, but like, you're just getting started out. This is, it could go anywhere. And people try to put together a plan, like where I'm going to be in 5 years. Where do you see yourself? Like, dude, I can't even see where I'm going to be a year from now, let alone 5 years.
Yeah. I have the same answer to that question. Tons of people say like, so what's the 5-year plan? What are you trying to do in 5 years? And my answer is always, I just want to do more of what I like doing and less of what I don't. And if I'm doing that in 5 years, then I'm pretty happy.
That's great. That's a great point to move to quick questions.
Whoa. Rapid fire.
Quick questions.
Oh my
Quick
goodness.
questions with Matt, sponsored by Skittles.
Taste the rainbow.
I feel like that could happen.
That could happen. Yeah,
that sounded really good.
Maybe someone from Skittles is listening.
God damn it. I had Band-Aid hit me up.
Oh,
that was a
wow.
big win.
That is a big win.
Yeah.
Band-Aid.
You can't
Yeah.
argue against Band-Aid.
Band-Aid. Like I'm like
Yeah.
Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Like Band-Aid's
the
a brand.
original
That's a
Band-Aid.
huge brand.
Yeah, it was massive. They're creating these like Band-Aids for your fingers so you don't touch the screen. I don't know exactly. I don't think it's gonna catch on. It seems
Is this
like,
a read? Are
Yeah,
we in the
yeah,
middle
is-
of an
was
ad?
it like a really authentic
Is this
read?
the ad?
What
that
just
was a
happened?
read. That was amazing. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was
They're
done.
called finger bowls.
Yeah, it was incredibly
And you
authentic.
get them. It really felt like he was telling us the story in the moment.
Yeah.
But he actually does it on every podcast.
Yeah, wow.
No, I mean, I've been just saying blanket no to everything at this point,
Right.
just because I'm not ready to bring that in. But I eventually will. I've heard, I think that you need to wait until a certain period in your growth, whether it's on the podcast or the YouTube channel, where you have the time for it and it also makes sense. Like, I'm not doing this to just scrape by. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to just scrape by for the next 5 to 10 years and just barely pay my bills. Like, I want to flourish and be able to hire other people and really execute on crazy big ideas. And to do that, you need some capital and some money to make it happen. So for me, I'm like, maybe I'll just wait a year or so, or at least enough time that I'm like ready to get a decent return on something like that.
This product is also super clean, right? Like there's not many brands that are involved in it. There's none, really.
None, yeah.
Your content's super clean from a video perspective. So you could potentially have it distributed elsewhere in different formats later on.
What do you
right?
mean?
Like if you look at like the Off-Camera Show, right? Which is a YouTube channel podcast. It was bought by Netflix. Right. There's no exclusive window with YouTube content. Like it's not exclusive to the platform. And if
Sure.
it's clean and someone like Netflix could buy it in a different packaging, it's totally possible.
I mean, you could take this show. You're filming it too, right? So this show could become. You could add like maybe little hosted sections or voiceover in between each interview, and it could be like an 8-episode series about like almost like abstract.
That's an idea.
Right.
Yep, we got an idea.
There we go.
Write it down.
There you go.
Cool. Thanks for that. This is the thing I love about this podcast is I just get free advice every week. It's super
Well, we'll
helpful.
invoce you. It's not.
Yeah,
free.
that was- that was not free.
Wait,
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
said free?
Listen,
Yeah,
we're-
who said
we
free?
saw what happened with Skittles and Band-Aids. Like, we're invoicing you for this.
That's great. All right, quick questions. You don't have to answer them quick, but you just answer them however you want. I really need a catchphrase for that. I've been struggling with that for
This
50
is the
episodes.
opportunity for like a jingle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
like, all right,
yeah.
now we're at the point of the podcast where we're to quick rapid fire with Matt, and like an
Yeah.
air blow.
Yeah, the DJ. DJ D. All right, so what book has had the biggest impact on your guys' lives?
Man, recently Shoe Dog.
What's Shoe Dog?
Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Story of Nike.
Story of
Phil
Nike.
Knight. Yeah,
Phil
just
Knight's
building a
memoir.
company from the ground up.
Is this
and-
a relatively new?
2
Oh,
years,
2
maybe
years?
2,
yeah,
3 years.
2-3 years. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, you want to get inspired about a life story, like Shoe Dog is the book I recommend to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say also, I know you read Seth Godin or you have,
Yeah.
but the book that really pushed me to launch first company was called Unleashing the Idea Virus. It was just a really powerful book for me. It was super accessible. It was really short, and like just the way he wrote it and the way he talked about how ideas could spread mixed with what was happening online and the opportunity to just release an idea to a bunch of people, that for me was like, it just pushed me to do it.
Yeah, I think and every creative needs to pick up like at least 3 Seth Godin books.
For sure.
Because he just has so much along each part of the journey. And like, because obviously, we give the best advice we can given our circumstances, but people are having different challenges at any moment in their career, where a book like The Dip would tell you
So
more
good.
about when to give up and when to quit and when to keep going. And it makes you also realize, you have this excitement before a project, and you almost think it's like unique to you and your passion and your drive. And it's like before every project, everybody gets super excited, and it's like, can you stick through it when the times are not going so well? Yeah, he's just been on top of the game for a long time.
He also has a great mailer.
Is that his email?
daily.
Every day, like,
really?
super short.
Is it his blog post basically?
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like, it's so short and text-based, which makes it like viral in nature because you want to forward it to someone. Like, I forward so many to Colin, even though he subscribes to it.
I get the mailer.
Yeah.
I see it every day.
And I still forward it to him
Gotta check
because
this
I
out.
just have to like emphasize some of these points. It's like
Yeah.
2 or 3 sentences. So he understands,
It's
like,
all stuff that you're like, I kind of already knew that, but it's really good to hear it again.
I think he really
Yeah.
understands like what it takes to get someone's time. and how important, how like you actually, if you're asking to be in someone's email inbox, or you're asking them to watch a video, or you're asking them to look at an Instagram post, you are pulling them in for a certain amount of time that they otherwise would be somewhere else, and you have to provide a lot of value in a short amount of time.
Seth Godin. This podcast is brought to you by Seth Godin. What one skill have you guys leveraged in a way that you think others haven't?
Me specifically, I would say designing, like graphic design in a very short amount of time.
Well, yeah, your guys' design shit is on point.
Just in
I'm
terms
super
That's all
impressed with all
Colin.
that, and the animation stuff too. It's
Appreciate
really good.
that.
Yeah, that's all Colin. And I think just together as like a team, we understand the value of branding something, like giving it a name. Like this is called The Ground Up Show. And it's like much easier to communicate to someone. Like, hey, you should check out his show. It's called The Ground Up Show. And then you go to it, it has a graphic. It's like you're building IP with it. So I think a lot of that came from like understanding the clothing business and being like, okay, either we're creating clothes for other people and under their brand, which is kind of like a service business, or we're going to build some sort of intellectual property that we own that can then, sell down the line or be super valuable, that it's like something we own. So when we create shows, like Colin has this crazy skill set of being able to design super fast and brand things in a way where they feel like they're, premium, and they're a show, and they're wrapped in this packaging, and people can talk about them because they have a name and a brand and a logo, and that makes it easier for us to like build.
It's also like that element is such a great way to tell stories, and you guys use it a lot in your videos, where you'll just say, and then we said yes, and then it's just like just beautiful typeface with like a nice simple background, but like you said, it's got a premium feel to it. And like when you're a filmmaker, a creative entrepreneur, whatever it is, like you need to have a bunch of different skills to be able to get by, and the more of these that you have, I think easier it's going to be able to tell your story and look professional and look premium. So nice job on the design.
Appreciate that.
It's really good.
Thanks, man.
When are you guys happiest?
I'm happiest when I have people around me that I enjoy being around, and people that I enjoy creating new things with, whether that's like experiences or content.
I'm going to give you two answers. One, I think I'm happiest when an idea finally comes to life. So like if we have an idea for a video and then the second we press publish, that's like the coolest for me, because it's something that did not exist. And it just came from our like minds, and then all of a sudden it exists. That's like for me, that's what drives me every day. I want to do that for the rest of my life, like come up with ideas and then have them come to life. And I think second happiest is probably when I'm with someone who I enjoy having conversation with, and I'm having a coffee and having conversations. So I told my girlfriend this morning when I was leaving, she was like, yeah, have a great day. And I was like, this is probably one of my favorite types of days. Like I'm going to go drive over to this guy's house who's going to make a cup of coffee, and we're going to talk about ideas. So that's like, those are the two times when I'm at my happiest.
That's a good look into our days as well, that a lot of times we'll get together and get a coffee and just like hour and a half, just talk. And some of it's about the business that we're doing, and some of it's not.
Yeah, I think you need some of that just unstructured time where I do this a lot with my sister, where we'll just, be on the phone for like an hour or 2 hours. We both started out freelancing around the same time and just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And it's like, that other person's story, where they're at in their career. And it's just like, it's so helpful to be able to bounce certain ideas around and figure out the direction you want to head, because I feel like we're always shaping it in the moment. We're always figuring out what should we be doing next.
Yeah.
There's so much uncertainty there. A couple more questions here. What is the simplest advice that's the most important to follow?
Probably just be empathetic. I would say like I spent a lot of my life not fully investing time trying to understand someone else and expecting people to understand me. And I think the simplest advice would be like, really try and understand someone else, because it will make your communication a lot easier. It will make you also understand how much you have control over in the world and how much you don't have control over. And that makes life a lot simpler, I guess, when you really can focus on understanding other people and not trying to change things and change people.
I would say hand in hand too, trying to understand yourself better, like taking a step back. I think that's something that working with Samir and some of our other like people that we've worked at out here has really taught me, that like you should take a step back and look at yourself and understand why you do certain things, and like just really take the time for yourself to learn and become a better person.
Great. And second to last question, what one thing should people read, watch, or listen to before they go to bed tonight? What's the thing that's going to inspire them to change?
If you got it, go for it.
This is a old piece that we watched in 2012 called Press, Pause, Play.
Oh, it's a good one.
And it's really what inspired us to realize how powerful the world was that we were entering into. The fact that you could be a musician and sit in your bedroom and become a professional musician, or be a video creator and sit in your bedroom and become a professional video creator. And for me, that was like the most unbelievable thing to watch. Was like, it validated for what we were doing for a time where we had zero validation, external validation. Here was a Vimeo documentary that came out that was like this hour-long piece about random people around the world who had made careers out of being creative on the internet. And it was so early. It was 2012. It was the first time I was like, okay, I can do it too.
Wow. Press, pause, play.
Yeah.
Check that out.
I don't know. I'm sure if you just search Press, Pause, Play, it's like available on Vimeo.
Yeah, it's still on Vimeo.
Yeah.
It's really
free.
old, but it's
I'll have to check it out.
really
I don't think
good.
I've seen
Yeah,
that.
great music.
Yeah, and we hit over 2 hours. I think this is the first time
No
I did
way.
a 2-hour podcast. Yeah.
It's been 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
On the
Record-breaking podcast here.
Yeah, record-breaking podcast. I'm pretty sure that's the first time, so...
Love that.
Congratulate. I wish I had a prize or something.
I actually
I don't have
emailed you,
anything.
though, before this saying, like, we tend to be long-winded.
Yeah.
We try and avoid that, but it just happens.
No, I like
It's
it.
just
I mean, that's the format. Actually, I try to keep most of them shorter. It just depends on how overwhelmed or busy I am with other stuff I'm doing, where I'm like, oh, I need to dedicate more time over here. So I probably shouldn't do a 2-hour podcast. It's going to take twice as long to edit this thing and export it and everything else. But was very glad to go the distance with you guys here today. If you could, where should people find you online? Where's the place to go?
Best place would be youtube.com/Colin and Samir.
You can check us out. I mean, Colin and Samir is our handle across the board, Twitter. We have one on Instagram as well. We can find us separately on Instagram as well. If you go to our YouTube channel, you find it all. ColinandSamir.com if you're into that too.
Awesome. Thanks for doing the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hope you guys liked the podcast. This one was over 2 hours long. I'm not going to bore you with a very long outro. Just want to say thank you so much for listening, and thank you for watching. Your support means the world to me, and I'll see you next week.